People love talking about generations. Baby boomers are often blamed for economic problems. Millennials are accused of destroying traditional industries. Gen Z is criticized for living through screens. But in the middle of all these conversations, one generation is often ignored. The quiet middle, Generation X. Born roughly between 1965 and 1980, they grew up during one of the most unusual transitions in modern history. They experienced the final years of the analog world and the beginning of the digital age. And living between these two different worlds shaped a mindset unlike any generation before or after them. To understand Generation X, you first have to understand the environment that shaped their childhood. Many Gen X children experienced something that feels rare today: unstructured freedom. Not the carefully scheduled and constantly supervised childhood that is common now. Real freedom. Kids would ride bicycles across neighborhoods for hours without phones. They would disappear outside all afternoon without anyone tracking their location. If something broke, they tried fixing it themselves. And many of them returned from school to something that has become almost unheard of today: an empty house. No parents, no babysitters, just quiet responsibility. This experience slowly trained their brains to approach life differently. Instead of immediately asking for help, they learned to figure things out on their own. Psychologists often associate this environment with a trait called self-reliance, the belief that your survival and success depend on your own decisions. For Generation X, that mindset became second nature. Another defining trait of Gen X psychology is skepticism. They grew up during a time when many trusted institutions began losing credibility. Political scandals dominated headlines. Economic shifts disrupted entire industries. Companies that once promised lifelong careers began laying off loyal employees. For a young person watching all of this unfold, a powerful lesson emerged. Authority doesn't automatically deserve trust. This doesn't mean Gen X rejects leadership, but they tend to respect competence more than titles. If someone demonstrates real skill and knowledge, Gen X will respect them. If not, they are far more likely to question what they hear. If you look closely at Gen X culture, you'll notice something interesting. Much of it is built around sarcasm, irony, and dark humor. From their movies to their music, there's often a tone of humor mixed with quiet cynicism. This wasn't accidental. Psychologists believe humor can act as a defense mechanism. When people grow up surrounded by uncertainty and change, humor becomes a way to create emotional distance. Instead of reacting with dramatic emotion, Gen X often responds with a sarcastic comment or a quiet shrug, not because they don't care, but because humor makes chaos easier to handle. Gen X also developed a unique attitude toward work. Unlike some generations that openly celebrate ambition or hustle culture, Gen X often takes a quieter approach. They rarely talk about how hard they're working. They simply focus on being capable. Many of them started working early in life: part-time jobs in restaurants, retail shifts after school, delivering newspapers, fixing things around the house. These experiences built a practical mindset where competence matters more than recognition. In many workplaces today, Gen X employees are known for something simple. They solve problems and get things done, often without needing attention or praise. Generation X also occupies a fascinating position in history. They clearly remember life before the internet. Research meant visiting a library. Maps were printed on paper. Phone calls happened on landlines. But they also witnessed the rise of personal computers, mobile phones, and eventually the internet. Their brains had to adapt to two completely different information environments. This unusual experience gave them a rare advantage. They understand modern technology, but they also remember a time when life moved more slowly and information wasn't constantly overwhelming. If you compare generations online, Gen X tends to share far less personal information. And this isn't because they struggle with technology. In fact, many early internet innovators came from this generation. The difference is cultural. Gen X grew up when most experiences happened offline. Embarrassing moments faded with time. Mistakes weren't permanently recorded. Personal stories stayed within small social circles. So when social media arrived, the idea of publicly sharing every detail of life felt unnatural to many of them. For Generation X, privacy wasn't a feature. It was simply the normal way life worked. Despite witnessing economic uncertainty, cultural shifts, and rapid technological change, Gen X developed a powerful psychological trait: adaptability. They learned how to adjust to new realities without expecting stability, and that ability made them remarkably resilient. Many researchers describe them as the bridge generation, a group that connects the world that existed before the internet with the digital world we live in today. Generation X rarely demands attention. They rarely chase the spotlight, but their influence quietly shaped the modern world. They helped build the early digital era. They adapted to massive technological change, and they carried forward a strong culture of independence. Perhaps that's why they're often overlooked, because Generation X doesn't spend much time announcing what it's doing. They simply keep moving forward. And sometimes the quietest generation leaves the strongest impact. If you enjoy exploring the psychology behind human behavior and generational patterns, consider subscribing for more videos that uncover the hidden workings of the human mind.